All right, welcome back everybody. This is the video for Module 4, Lesson 22. Today we're dividing decimal numbers again to the hundredths, but this time we're doing 2-digit whole numbers and they don't end in zeros today. They're not the multiples of 10 like we've been doing. So just a heads up, all right? The best way to probably do these is going to be the partial quotient method. So if you need to use graph paper, that will be available to you. But there might be also some times where you need to do some multiplication on the side too. But using the partial quotient method, that should avoid that more so than the other method we learned where we're doing the old school standard algorithm, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down one digit at a time. So for all the questions today on our video, we're gonna be using partial quotients. So make sure you leave yourself enough room above your division hood for that. So this question's coming right off your homework, little Easter egg here for you. So 96 and 35 hundredths is our dividend, divided by 41, our divisor, equals blank. All right, so underneath your title, you can write that. And just a quick review of division. We're splitting this number up into 41 groups. So if this was like $96.35, and I'm splitting that up between 41 people, let's say, we're trying to figure out how much each person gets. So I'm gonna skip a bunch of lines in my notebook. I'm gonna get my division hood set up. And I'm going to write the dividend inside without the decimal. And then here's my 2-digit whole number on the outside. And now you can see why this is going to be a little bit more challenging than previous lessons. We're used to seeing a number that ends in a 0. So you can't just skip count by 40s for this one because it won't really give you the exact answer. However, if you do know how to skip count by 40s, since this rounds to 40, that might help you figure out what to put on top. Now, if you use the partial quotient method, you could still start this off the same way. Even though this number may be challenging, you have the choice with partial quotient to put an easy number up top here that you can multiply this by, okay? So to do that, to figure out where we should be starting, I always go to that first digit and underline it. And I ask myself that same question you've seen in the other videos. Is this bigger than this? And the answer is no. So now it tells me I'm gonna have to go over one more place value and look at the beginning of this big number as 96. Now 41 is smaller than 96, and I can assume that I'm probably only gonna be multiplying by 1 to get to 96. Because if you think about skip counting by 40s, like I said earlier, 40, 80, as soon as you get past that, you're too high. And you could do trial and error, but if you know how to estimate in your head, you could put a 1 there, and then 2 zeros here as those placeholders. So you're essentially doing 41 times 100. So now you do that hidden fact, 41 times 1. That goes right underneath the 96. And these 2 zeros can keep it nice and evened out. All right, so now we're chiseling down this inside number. We're going to subtract. 5 minus 0 is 5. 3 minus 0 is 3. 6 minus 1 is 5. And 9 minus 4 is also 5. Okay. Now looking at this, I just realized I could have probably used 200 up here, but the nice thing about partial quotients is you don't have to. We just have to do an extra step now. Because this number, 4,100, is less than my remainder, I can use that again. So I'm going to do another 100 on top. And again, that just means I'm doing 41 times 1 with 2 zeros on the end. I can use that again. So I'm doing my subtraction, and I get another remainder of a big number, 1,435. All right, so I'll let you guys catch up. Okay, so now let's look at this number. So we obviously can't use 100 again, and if you look at the beginning of the number, the 1 and even the 14 is smaller than this. So I'm down to a 2-digit number going up here because I have to go all the way over to the tens and ones place. So I'm just gonna pick an easy number to multiply by. I could do 10, maybe do 20 if I know how to double this number. So let's try 20 and see what happens. So I'm gonna put 20 up top. Now if you did 10, you would just have to do another 10 if this is enough. So the 0 from the 20 is coming down here. And then watch what I do here. I'm just gonna double 41 because 41 times 2, don't forget, the trick with 2s, just double that number. All right, so 41 doubled would be 82. So I'm gonna put that here. And then I'm going to subtract again. So 5 minus 0 is 5, 3 minus 2 is 1. I would have to regroup here, or you could just say 14 minus 8 if you know that fact is 6. All right. So this, now you're seeing why they call this really long division. It really gets long with these bigger numbers on the outside. So this is okay though, because if you look at the beginning of this number, we have a 6, that's too small, but the 61, I'm only going to be able to do 41 times 1 without going over that. So that tells me I'm going to use a 10. So there's that 1, and there's that 0. So now 41 times 10 should be easy mental math. We have 1 times 41 with a 0 on the end, and that gets us 410. So again, I'm subtracting, and I get 205. Okay, so we're getting closer. So obviously I could have did this a little faster if maybe I started with 200 and maybe did 30 up here. But if I did 30, I might have to do 41 times 3 on the side, which is okay if you want to try it. But if you want to avoid as much multiplication problems on the side as possible, your best bet is to stick to easy numbers with zeros at the end that you can multiply 41 by mentally. So the camera's going to pan up and down a little bit because it's taking up a lot of room on my whiteboard, but we should be pretty close. So I'm going to try to really get a good estimate for this one. I know that 41, our divisor that's up top, is bigger than the 20. So if I have to look at this whole number now, because if I even try 41 times 10 again, that's going to be too big because I would get 410 under here. You can't subtract that. That's the beauty of division. If you make a mistake, you're going to find out at one of the steps. So it has to be a single digit number. So this is where I'm probably going to have to multiply on the side if I want to get as close as possible. So I'm going to use a quick trick right now that I know some of you guys are going to be really good at. I'm going to, in my mind, change this to 40 and skip count by 40s till I get to here to give me a good estimate. So 40 would be 1, 80 would be 2 40s, all right? So I'm trying to go to 205. 4 times 3 is 12, so 120 would be the next one. Then 4 times 4 is 16, so 160. And you could do this down the side, okay? Getting closer. So that was 4 times 4. 4 times 5 is 20. Oh, there's that number right there. So I'm going to try 41 times 5 next. And then bring that down here. So if you don't know what 41 times 5 is, there'll be some extra room on the side of your paper when you actually have to do some of this. And 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 4 is 20, and oh, look at that. Hit it right on the head. So no annexing zeros and bringing them down on this one. That's nice. Remember, you can't have an R remainder with decimals. So all of these up here are my answer. Now the question is, what do I do with this decimal point? So remember the rule. The decimal point goes straight up in your answer. So now you can go ahead and plug that back in. And by the way, if you're still writing this stuff down below, don't stress it. I want you to come back up top. You can always fill that in later. Notes are for later, not for now, don't forget. So we're going to go ahead and stack these up. So if you have graph paper, that'll be really nice because you can see that there's a couple places we need to throw in some zeros if we want this all to line up. So I'm going to take my pink marker and kind of show you. There's an empty spot here. You can put a 0. And then above these ones in the ones place, you have some zeros too. Okay? You guys know me, I like to circle all my partial quotients so I know that I need to add those all up. And at this point, we have sometimes, because I did 2 100s, some numbers we have to add up. But I think you should be able to do all these mentally without restacking these over here. So I'm just going to go right in order from the right side to the left. So we have a 5 plus zeros is 5. 2 plus 1 is 3 right next to it. Then we have our decimal point. And then we just have 1 plus 1 over here, which is 2. So going back to the original example I gave you, if I had $96.35 divided up between 41 people, it would be $2.35 per person. So every question is going to be a little different today because this number is going to be different. So there's many ways you can attack a problem like this. Partial quotients is probably your best bet because you can make mistakes like I did here where I could have went with a bigger number off the bat and did 200. But that's okay with partial quotients because you can just keep adding up top until you get that chiseled down. The more numbers you use on top, though, the more numbers you have down here. So if you were not done writing that, I'm going to leave this up on the screen as the video ends. I want to keep this video around 10 minutes, so we're right around that mark right now. So any other questions that you see today, if you're having a hard time in small groups, let's just make sure we're asking questions and doing what we need to do to get to the answer, and don't give up, all right? This is a difficult lesson, we all know, so we'll help you as much as we can. But based on the last few days, you guys look like you're doing okay with this, so you should be all right. All right, good luck.